let me do something different today. Instead of explaining what's happening, I'm going to tell you exactly where this is going, and more importantly, why I'm confident enough to say it out loud. But first, we need to go back, because if you don't understand how I made my first 3 predictions, you won't trust the new one. And I don't want your blind trust. I want you to follow the logic and reach the same conclusion yourself. The 3 predictions nobody believed. It's May 2024. Biden is still president. Trump is facing 91 criminal charges. The media is practically writing his political obituary. Most analysts are saying the Middle East is tense, sure, but a full-blown war with Iran, unlikely. The world feel more or less stable. And in this classroom, I made 3 predictions that most people thought were crazy. 1, Donald Trump will win the presidential election. 2, the United States will go to war with Iran. 3, the United States will lose that war, and that loss will permanently reshape the global order. 2 of those have already happened. Trump won, America went to war, and right now the entire world is watching to find out if the 3rd one comes true. So how did I see it coming? Not because I'm special, not because I have some gift for prophecy. I used a method, a framework I call Predictive History, which combines game theory with deep structural patterns from across human civilization. And today, I'm going to use that exact same framework to tell you how this war ends. The method, how to see around corners. Before I give you the prediction, you need to understand how I arrive at it, because I never want you to just take my word for anything. I want you to be able to test this yourself. I look at 3 things. First, structure, the deep, slow-moving forces that constrain what's even possible. Geography, population, economic systems. These don't change quickly, but they shape everything. Second, incentives, because in game theory, every player is trying to maximize their own interests. The critical skill is learning to separate what players say they want from what they actually want, because those 2 things are almost never the same. Third, historical patterns, not because history repeats exactly, it doesn't, but because human beings are human beings and empires are empires. The same patterns surface across thousands of years. And if you know what to look for, you can see them playing out in real time. Now, let's apply all of this to the question everyone is asking: how does this war end? What each player actually wants. Start with America. Officially, Washington says it wants to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, bring democracy to the region, and establish peace and stability in the Middle East. That's the press conference version. Here's the real version. America wants to maintain control over the global oil supply, because that control is the foundation of the Petrodollar system, and the Petrodollar system is the foundation of American financial power. Since 1973, all oil in the world has been traded in US dollars. This creates permanent global demand for the dollar, which is what allows America to print money, run massive deficits, and fund the largest military in human history without its economy imploding. Take away the petrodollar, and America can no longer afford its empire. So when you strip away the rhetoric, this war is really about one thing: keeping that system alive. Iran's goals are completely different, and in some ways far simpler. Iran wants to survive. That's not a metaphor. Iran has watched what happened to Iraq after the American invasion. It watched Libya get destroyed. It watched Syria get torn apart. It has been under punishing American sanctions for decades and has lived through multiple American attempts at regime change since 1979. Iran's leadership understands with absolute clarity that if it doesn't fight back, it will be next. But beyond pure survival, Iran also wants something more: permanent recognition as a legitimate regional power, an end to sanctions, control over the Strait of Hormuz as long-term economic leverage, and security guarantees for its allies, Yemen, Hezbollah, Iraq. Israel's goals are more ambitious and, I'd argue, more coldly strategic than most people realize. Israel is auditioning for a new role on the world stage, the role of dominant Middle Eastern power once America steps back. It is demonstrating to global financial elites, to the asset managers and institutions that actually run the global system, that it has the unity, the intelligence capabilities, and the will to be the region's enforcer when America can no longer do the job. Israel is playing a very long game here. And the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, are essentially doing what weaker powers always do when surrounded by giants. They're watching closely, staying flexible, and preparing to align themselves with whoever looks like they're winning. Their loyalty will shift fast when the direction becomes clear. The structural reality on the ground. Now here is where the prediction gets built brick by brick on facts that are not really in dispute. America is winning the air war, but cannot win the ground war. In the air, America is dominant, the most advanced jets, the most precise targeting systems, the most powerful bombs on Earth. And in the opening phase, it did real damage to Iran. Nuclear facilities struck, leadership targeted, missile factories hit. But here is the problem that every serious military historian will tell you: you cannot regime change a country from the air alone. It has never happened in modern warfare. America bombed North Vietnam for years. Vietnam didn't surrender. The British bombed Germany relentlessly in World War II. Germany didn't collapse until Soviet and American troops were physically standing inside its cities. Air power softens, it doesn't decide. So if America's real goal is regime change, it eventually has to put boots on the ground. And a ground invasion of Iran would be a catastrophe of historic proportions. Iran is 4 times the size of Iraq. It has a population of 90 million. It is mountainous, rugged, and deeply hostile to foreign occupation. And here's the part that should genuinely frighten Pentagon planners. Iran has been preparing for a ground invasion for 25 years. Not 25 days, not 25 months, 25 years. Underground military bases buried in mountain ranges. Decentralized drone factories designed to keep producing even after strikes. Weapon systems built specifically to destroy helicopters, armor, and infantry in close-range urban and mountain warfare. America would not be walking into Iraq 2003. It would be walking into something far worse. The cost exchange is bleeding America dry. Iran fires a drone that costs $50,000. America fires an interceptor missile that costs between $3 million and $10 million to shoot it down. That's a cost ratio of 60 to 200 to 1, and Iran fires these drones in swarms, hundreds at a time. America is burning through its interceptor stockpiles at a rate that has Pentagon officials visibly alarmed. Think about what that means. The most powerful military in human history is in a race against the clock to achieve its objectives before it literally runs out of weapons. Meanwhile, Iran's dispersed drone factories hidden in basements and warehouses across the country can be rebuilt relatively quickly even after strikes. This asymmetry only gets worse for America as time goes on. The economic weapon is loaded and pointed at the global economy. The Strait of Hormuz carries 20% of the world's oil supply. Iran effectively controls it right now. Yemen has entered the conflict and is threatening the Red Sea, which carries another 12 to 15% of global trade. When both of these choke points are disrupted simultaneously, oil hits $150, possibly $200 a barrel. Fertilizer becomes scarce, food prices spike globally, a recession begins, and suddenly ordinary Americans who are already asking why gas costs this much and why their grocery bills keep climbing have a very clear and very personal answer: this war. That is a political problem no president can manage indefinitely. American political will is fragile and getting more fragile by the day. Only about 40% of Americans currently support this war. That number will fall, not rise, as casualties mount and economic pain spreads. America is simply not a nation that tolerates long, expensive, inconclusive wars. We learned this in Vietnam. We relearned it in Iraq. We relearned it again in Afghanistan. Every single time, the same pattern emerges: initial support, followed by creeping doubt, followed by collapse of political will, followed by withdrawal. Iran's strategists know this pattern better than most Americans do. For 2 decades, Iran has been studying American political psychology, specifically trying to understand the pain threshold at which the American public turns against a war. Iran's entire military strategy is designed around pushing America past that threshold. The prediction, based on all of this, I believe this war ends in one of 2 ways, and which one depends entirely on a single decision. Does America send ground troops into Iran or not? If America keeps this an air war, the scenario plays out like this. The bombing continues, Iran keeps firing, the war grinds on for months, maybe longer, interceptor stockpiles keep depleting, political opposition at home keeps building, oil prices stay high, the global economy keeps suffering, and eventually, and this is the key word, eventually, America looks for an exit. Trump goes on television and says something like, "We have significantly degraded Iran's military capabilities, we have achieved our objectives, and we are bringing our forces home." The media will debate whether it was a victory or a defeat. But what actually happens is this: America withdraws from the Middle East. The Gulf states immediately start hedging. Qatar and Oman pivot toward Iran. Saudi Arabia and UAE pivot toward Israel. The petrodollar weakens significantly. And Iran, still standing, still controlling the Strait of Hormuz, emerges as a recognized regional power for the first time in decades. America loses the war, but the loss is managed. It's painful, it's humiliating, but America survives. Now, if America sends ground troops, that's where things become genuinely dangerous. Iran has been waiting for exactly this. Those underground bases America hasn't located get activated. Weapon systems that haven't been used yet get deployed, and 90 million people who genuinely believe they are fighting for their survival become the most motivated fighting force on earth. But it gets worse. The moment American boots are physically inside Iran, what stops Iraqi militias from moving on Kuwait and Saudi Arabia simultaneously? What stops Yemen from pushing into Saudi Arabia from the south? Suddenly, America's Gulf bases, the bases it needs to supply and reinforce its troops inside Iran, are threatened from multiple directions at once. America wouldn't just be in a quagmire inside Iran. Its entire Middle Eastern position could be collapsing around it at the same time. To fight a serious ground war in Iran, America would need hundreds of thousands of troops. That means a national draft. It means 1 8-year-olds being sent to fight in Iranian mountain ranges. It means social upheaval at home on a scale America hasn't seen since Vietnam. It would end Trump politically and accelerate the financial collapse of the American economy. This isn't a difficult war scenario. This is a catastrophic empire ending scenario. So here are my 3 specific predictions. First, there will be no ground invasion of Iran. The Marines are heading to the region, yes. There may be special forces operations. There may be limited strikes, but a full-scale ground invasion. The people around Trump who actually understand the military situation, the ones who know what a draft means, who know what years of urban mountain warfare in Iran means, they are fighting hard against it internally. The cost is simply too high, and even Trump, for all his impulsiveness, will eventually be told clearly and firmly, going in on the ground is the end of everything. Second, this war ends with America withdrawing from the Middle East within 12 to 24 months. The economic pressure will build until it's politically untenable. China, Russia, and India will make clear, privately, firmly, that the global economy cannot sustain this disruption and it's time to stop. And Trump, who genuinely cares about the economy and about his legacy, will find a formula to declare victory and walk away. This is Vietnam's endgame replayed. America didn't lose Vietnam in a single decisive battle. It lost Vietnam because the cost in blood, money, and credibility became unsustainable, and eventually a president had to find a way to leave. That is what will happen here. Third, after America leaves, the Middle East reorganizes around 2 regional powers, Iran and Israel. Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz and the eastern half of the region, with Russia and China as its primary economic partners. Israel controls the western half, leveraging its technological superiority, intelligence capabilities, and deep connections to global finance. The Gulf states split between them, some aligning with Iran, some with Israel. And here's the part that will genuinely surprise people. Iran and Israel, despite being ideological enemies today, will eventually find a way to coexist. Not as friends, never as friends, but as 2 strong powers that respect each other's strength and find it more productive to dominate the weak than to fight each other indefinitely. Why this matters beyond the Middle East? When America leaves the Middle East, it doesn't just lose a region, it loses the petrodollar. And when it loses the petrodollar, it loses the financial foundation of its entire empire. That is the 3rd prediction I made in 2024, and it is the one still playing out. The Athenians, who launched the Sicilian expedition in 415 BC, were the most powerful civilization in the Greek world. They sent their best ships, their best generals, their finest soldiers to conquer Sicily. The expedition was a total catastrophe. Athens never fully recovered. Its empire declined, and eventually Athens fell, not because it was conquered, but because it overextended itself, because arrogance led it into a trap it couldn't escape. America is in that trap right now. The question isn't really whether America will lose this war. Based on structural analysis, that process is already underway. The real question is how quickly America recognizes it, how quickly it finds a graceful exit, and how much damage it does to itself and the world before it accepts reality. My prediction, and I want to be clear, this is analysis, not prophecy, is that America will find its exit. It will be painful and humiliating, but America will survive. It will retreat, not collapse, and the world that comes out the other side will be more multipolar, more balanced, and in some important ways, more honest, because a world where one empire controls everything is never a stable world. It is always a world waiting for the moment that empire makes its fatal mistake. America made that mistake, and history, as always, doesn't forgive those who ignore its lessons.